Hello, everybody. I'm Ed Parcaut, the host of Helping the Brave, and let's bring in our guest today. How you doing, Paul? That's Skidmore, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. As we talked beforehand, and just so you know, everybody, the show is usually for veterans telling their transition stories, stuff they're doing. But I also like to bring people on who have a story or something that kind of connects to what we go through as veterans. And we're losing 50 a day for suicide that we need to stop, and we need to help that. And you created you have a book and a movie that I hear coming out, right? A film.
That's correct. So I've got a short story called "The Darkness Rolled Over Her." This is the paperback version. It's also available as an ebook.
Where's it
And
available?
it's available. Paperback's available on Amazon. Ebook is available Apple Books and Amazon as well. You can also get the ebook for free at 5coffeesinabook.com. And I'm giving the ebook away completely for free because I think it can be a valuable resource. It's the story. The main character is a veteran in the story. He doesn't play a huge role in the story.
Right. Paul,
But
before you go through that,
sure.
is that spelled out 5 coffees?
Either way, but
Okay.
yeah,
Just verifying because
yeah. I bought both URLs for that reason. Yeah.
because you
Sure.
never know. Yeah. All right. So get into all right. So before we get into the whole story and everything about it, how did you come to do what you're doing? What's your
As a
background? Yeah.
as a filmmaker and an author.
I don't know your story, so I'm trying to
Yeah,
get
sure.
your story.
So I've always been interested in movies and storytelling. I've been in storytelling since I was 5 years old. Little storytelling contest at our local library in East Tennessee. And I grew up watching Superman and Back to the Future and Ghostbusters and Star Wars, and just was really fascinated with the storytelling of movies. And so, fast forward into college, went to University of North Carolina School of the Arts for filmmaking. Learned how to make movies there from industry professionals and some really great filmmakers that were there as teachers at the time. And since then, I've been pursuing filmmaking in different ways, helping other people make their films, teaching people how to make films, doing freelance film video work, to pay the bills. And a few years ago, I decided that I would write some short stories and self-publish them. I wanted to get into self-publishing and self-marketing and sort of figure that out. I didn't go to LA because I have always wanted to kind of do things on my own. And so I figured a short story would be something that I could do. You don't have to pay a crew. You don't have to feed people to write a short story. You just have to sit down and get it done. And so my first short story, Kindling, I did in May of 2018, I think. And at the time, it was not really feasible to do a paperback of just a 36-page story. So I thought, okay, well, I'll come up with some other short stories and put together like an anthology. So at that point, I was just looking for basically any idea that I could put into a story form. And my dad is a fly fisherman, and he had spent a day working with an organization doing where they take veterans with PTSD and do some fly fishing out in East Tennessee. And he's not involved with the program, but he was involved with it just that one day and thought it was a neat thing and came home and told us about it. And initially just sort of stayed in my mind because my dad's kind of a private guy. He's kind of introverted like me. So I was just sort of wondering what did this, person think being paired up with my dad all day? What did they think of him? And what was that experience like? I would love to have, witnessed that. And it just sort of kept staying in my mind. I thought, well, maybe this is something I can write one of these stories about. And probably the number one thing that I remember learning fly fishing from my dad, I'm not a very good fly fisherman. My dad's an expert. He's been doing it for probably 60, almost 70 years. And, but the one thing that I remember is it's not like the other kind of fishing we would do. You just sit on the shore for hours on end, but you would get in the water and you'd walk and you would keep moving. And so when I decided to write a story about it, I thought I need a character who needs to learn to keep moving, someone who has decided to stop moving. And so after sort of outlining and hashing out the story, it came to be someone who was not only dealing with PTSD that would get them into a situation like this, but somebody that had given up and somebody that had decided to stop moving. And so my story, The Darkness Rolled Over Her, is about Gwen, who's a middle-aged female, and she has decided to take her own life. You find that in the first sentences of the book. And she's got this fly fishing retreat that's been planned for a while. She thinks this would be a good time to kind of say goodbye to some people. And she gets paired up with this old fly fisherman named Roy, and Roy starts to really challenge that decision that she's made. And there's also a younger woman on the trip named Sam. Sam's about 20 something. And when Gwen looks at Sam, she thinks, well, that's sort of where I was at that age, and I don't want her to be where I am now at my age. But I don't know if I have anything left in me to do something about that. And so between Roy and Sam, these things really challenged the decision that she's made. The story really took on a life of its own, began writing itself. I sort of wondered what the impact of it might be. While I was writing it, I had 2 friends of friends that committed suicide, and I saw how my friends were impacted by that. And it suddenly was not just a short story I was writing to kind of chalk in with all these other stories. It suddenly became much more important to me. And so I have a few friends that have either lost an important family member to suicide, or they have attempted and thank God are still with us, or have counseled people as a counselor through times like that. And so I consulted with all of them on the story and got feedback from them on early drafts, which I really appreciated, and tried to work in, the things that we talked about. I don't claim to be a mental health expert by any means, but sort of what I've come to realize is as many reasons as somebody comes to that place in their life, we're going to have as many solutions for trying to get somebody away from there. Everybody's going to need something sort of tailored to their specific set of circumstances. Some people need to just, get sleep and exercise and get some sun. Some people really need medication and group therapy and some more serious and involved things. But one thing that everyone needs is to be able to talk about it safely with somebody who cares about them. And so we developed 5 coffees in a book, sort of alongside the book, as a way for people to read the book and talk about it with somebody else. Because I wanted the book to be for people that are in that dark space. I wanted the book to be something that they could hand to friends and family and say, this is what it feels like. This is what I'm going through. And for people who were the friends and family of someone going through a dark place, I wanted them to be able to read this book and not only have some understanding of what it was like, but also see some healthy examples of how to interact with somebody, some helpful things to do, as opposed to some of the unhelpful things that we sort of, tend to do by default. So the other sort of theme in the book, and really stress this a little harder in the film version, which was coming out, is coming out later this year. We're almost done with it. But is the idea that, so I've never been what I would call classically suicidal myself. But I've woken up staring at the ceiling, knowing today is going to be just like yesterday and the 50 days before that, and not wanting to do that anymore. I've laid there in bed and said to God, hey, if this is it, I don't want this. I don't want to do this again every day for the rest of my life. Something has to change. It wasn't that I wanted to check out so much as that I just didn't want to keep living the life that I was living, And so,
Paul, I think people have suicide thoughts,
yeah,
but not everybody acts on them.
that's
Right?
correct. That's right.
That's the big
Yeah.
difference. A lot of people will have that. Well, what I might be better if I'm not here. Okay, and then they moved on. But it's the ones that my daughter committed suicide.
I'm so sorry.
And thank God she's still here. She attempted it, and they saved her. But when she was younger in high school, and that's from some other stuff. But you didn't. It's the ones you don't know about that you have to worry about.
My mother just attended a funeral this weekend of some friends of the family. I was a young man who I'm not sure if he was high school or early college, but basically all of his friends from high school got up and said, hey, he was the guy that was always encouraging us and supporting us and rooting for everything that we were doing. And he took his own life. They had no idea. They never saw it coming. And I think part of that was, I'm reminded of I'd mentioned Superman, grew up watching Superman as a kid. And one of the neat parts when Superman first appears about halfway through the film, as he catches Lois Lane falling off the building, and it's the first time you really see him fly. And he says, don't worry, I've got you. And she says, well, who's got you? And I think about this kid, and he had all these other people, but it was like, who
Nobody
had
has.
him? He's not a superhero. He's just a human being, you know?
Right.
And so that's one reason why the second theme of the story is so important to me, because, you know, when I was in that space, I felt like I needed encouragement and I felt like I needed love. And I did need those things. But what I found was when I was put in a place where I was able to give love and encouragement to someone else, I got way more love and encouragement than I ever even expected to receive by receiving it. And as a father, I'm sure you understand that principle, that when you have something that is just totally dependent on you and can't really return anything back in any way, this amount of love that comes out of you and this purpose that you have, you know, sort of keeps you moving, keeps you moving forward. And so those two ideas, that idea of keep moving and that idea of encouraging others, really push the story forward. And then as soon as the story was done, it was like, hey, there's 4 characters in it. It's all outside day. I've got a camera. I've got a microphone. We got volunteer cast and crew. We shot it in the fall of 2020 and have been slowly, cobbling it together editing wise in the years that have followed. And we're, like I said, we're almost done. So Lord willing, we'll be out in a couple months. But I'm a filmmaker by business, so I would love people to buy the book, to buy, coffee mugs and t-shirts or whatever. That would be great. But I want the book to be available for free forever. As long as I have the technical ability, the ebook will be available for free. 5 coffees and a book discussion guide available for free, because I just don't want there to be anything impeding someone from having this resource that might help them. I don't know that every suicide is preventable, but I think a lot of them are. And sometimes the thing that might prevent it is someone just having a safe space to talk with someone else about it,
And or somebody reaching out to them. I think
absolutely.
that's the biggest thing that you can do. I talk about it when I was my Rotary president a year or so ago. My big thing was challenge 22 to reach out to 22 people a week, just to reach out. I don't care if they're veterans or what, but just that because I thought that was the number. Well, come to find out, by the time I was finished with my year, I knew the number was much higher. It was more like 50 a day were committing suicide, and the suicide rate for first responders is just as bad.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've been dealing with through going through the VA is I don't relate to combat veterans because I wasn't in combat. But what I did when I was in the Navy is I was what they called an EMT, but really we were paramedics because you could do everything, right? Basically. And this was at Camp Hill, and the stuff I saw, then I was like, because I do an Operation Firewalk, which is you come for last year was 2 days. This year's just 1 day. You come, we have motivation speakers. At the end of the night, you walk across coals. And we have a Tony Robbins guy that used to work for Tony Robbins to do it. And it's huge. It makes a big difference. And my big push this year was just to do veterans. But then after what I've been dealing with, I relate more with first responders. So now I'm really pushing to have both there because of the fact that you need to help both because it's so bad.
Sure. And like you said, everybody deals with feeling like they're not contributing to the world, or feeling lonely, or feeling worthless, or depressed, or anxious, or whatever. A lot of people feel different volume levels sort of those feelings. I think the thing is, for some people, it really takes root and it just becomes very caustic. And I think we also think that other people don't deal with that, or at least don't deal with it in the way that we're dealing with it. And so we don't talk about it, and we don't discuss it, which makes it worse and makes it grow and makes that hole grow deeper. And my hope, my prayer is that having this discussion guide, or just having the book out there, will give people the ability to discuss it and kind of stop that sort of caustic chemical reaction from happening.
Yeah, because I mean, a lot of people especially veterans, don't ask for help. They just,
Yeah.
and the other problem is they're trying to get help, and the VA was so bad for so many years that they're committing suicide still in the parking lots at some of these places, and that doesn't need to be that way.
No, for sure.
Because I mean, the VA clinic in my town it was amazing, in and out, whatever you need. But in other places, it's not that way, and we need to fix that. Whether that is new insurance for veterans to go anywhere to get help, or whatever that thing is, But even from getting help with PTSD from your first appointment to see the doctor to do the next, we're talking. It's not in the next day. So I'm used to Kaiser. My wife works for Kaiser. If there's an issue with you, you're there today, tomorrow morning at the latest. If if they find cancer or whatever, boom, you're gone. You're over there. That's how they should treat veterans.
Sure.
And first responders who need the help. But this is a topic that needs to be more talking about, because again, it is not talked about enough. People don't feel that they can share. They're worried. I think a lot of them are worried about what's going to happen when they share it. Are they going to be put in a padded room, like years ago? Or what's going to happen from that if you say that kind of thing?
Well, that's one reason why we developed the 5 Coffees in a Book, actually, because after the book came out, I was discussing it with a friend of mine back home. And it was not somebody that I was really close to, somebody I've known my whole life just from church, but not somebody I was like really, really super close to. But we were talking about it in the hallway, and she was talking about the story and began talking about really some very personal things in her own life, ways that she had struggled with it. And she said, I understood reading this book. I knew that you understood that because I could see it on the page, And so I found myself talking about things a little more personal than I probably would have. And I also found that if either of us sort of felt uncomfortable talking about ourselves, we could go to the book and be like, oh, it's like that part in the book where, and then we had the book as kind of a foil, kind of as a safety net, but it allowed us to share more, than we would have otherwise. And so that's what gave me the idea that, man, if I could just create a place where people can just, sit face to face and talk with each other and share about this, then, maybe this might be even more preventative than just having the story out there by itself.
So the 5 coffee, what is it? 5 coffees in a book?
Yeah. So
what is that overall? What's totally going on there?
So the idea is that you would have 5 cups of coffee with a friend. So over 5 weeks, let's say, you sit down over with a friend or two over coffee. And the 5 weeks are kind of broken down like this. The first week is just, there's like some little icebreaker questions. It basically tells everybody where to get the book, but you can get the ebook for free. If they want to buy it on Amazon, they can do that. And then by week 2, everyone has read the story. And so week 2, you talk about the story and some of the themes in it, and there's some guided way to do that. Oh, also in that first week, it goes through some, good sort of group discussion, sort of parameters, guidelines, things to keep in mind, and things to do and not do, and just kind of make sure that it remains sort of a safe thing. Week 2 talks about the story, and then weeks 3, 4, and 5 get into some of the characters. So week 3, you talk about Roy, who's sort of the first encourager. And that gives everybody an opportunity to not just talk about that theme of encouragement, but then to also talk about people in their lives that have encouraged them. And then that week, sort of their homework assignment is to, reach out to somebody that's encouraged them. Week 4, you talk about Gwen, the main character, and you talk about her story and the changes that she goes through in the story. And it gives everybody an opportunity to share their story if they want to. There's no obligation, with any of this. And then week 5 is about Sam, and it's about somebody that needs encouragement. And everyone's encouraged to, think about somebody that they know that probably needs some encouragement. And then they're further encouraged to take the 5 coffees in a book to that person and do it again with them. And so ideally, this would be something that would sort of multiply and replicate and sort of chain reaction, keep going and spread and multiply.
All right. So it's 5 cups.
5 coffees, 5 coffees in a book.
5 coffees in a book. Just want to make sure people get it because it's
Absolutely.
been all right.
Yep. 5 coffees in a book.com. And we've got an Instagram, so you can just sort of swipe through the questions. We also got the questions on Facebook as well. We've got a Facebook page. Or you can, the PDF, of course, you can look at digitally, but if you wanted to have it printed, then it looks really nice on paper also.
I was just trying to pull it up, so I had it over here, and I was definitely typing it wrong.
Yeah.
All right.
You also, if you go there now, I think the trailer for the movie is up there now. We've added a few things about the movie.
It talks about the feature film and everything. Yeah, that's there. Yeah. Cool. So when that comes out, is that going to be nationwide? Is that going to be online only? Do you know how that's going to be promoted?
Well, like I said, I've always wanted to do everything sort of myself and not do it as part of the big machine. And I really want to go direct to customer. And we're at a time in technology and online media and stuff now where I can easily do that. The thing that's still hard is the the advertising, the marketing and advertising. So I mean that's one reason I'm doing this. The book is available, and So even if there was no movie, I would love to do this and get the book out there. But hopefully, it will drive some interest towards the film as well. I'm finishing it so that it can be shown in the theater, because I'd like to at least have a premiere event for the cast and crew that worked hard on it and dedicated their time. But since I have a theater quality copy, I will take it to Malco's out of Memphis here in Tennessee. And I think in Knoxville, there's a AMC or Regal office, I think. So I'll probably look at maybe, a week or two in some art house theaters in different places, but primarily it'll be online. And I haven't fully figured out exactly what this is going to look like yet. But if you, the way you get the ebook is you put your email address in and it sends you a link to download the book. You can immediately unsubscribe to the emails. That's fine. I'm not going to send you a ton of emails. There's a couple of automated ones right up front that just remind you to read the book and share it. And then after that, it's only whatever I sent out. And I haven't sent out an email on that list in a long time. So you're not going to get bombarded with emails, but that will be the list. That will be the list when the film comes out, that all that information will come through there. Absolutely.
Yeah, so don't unsubscribe, just subscribe and get the book, please. And then when the movie's out and you can go take a look at it. So what after this? So you wrote the book, you have the website, you have the movie coming out. What's next?
Well, so like I said, I wrote some other short stories. One of those stories ended up being kind of a long story and crossed over into novel territory. I think a novel is officially like 40,000 words, and this ended up being 44,000. It's called God Rest Ye Merry Gentlemen, and it's also sort of military themed. It's set in Continental Air Defense, which is the precursor to NORAD. And so if anyone's familiar with how NORAD tracks Santa at Christmas, that began in 1955 with a misprint in the Colorado Springs paper. Sears had a hotline where you could call and talk to Santa, tell him your Christmas list. And they misprinted the phone number and inadvertently put the number that was Colonel Harry Shoup's phone inside Continental Air Defense. That basically the only people that had that phone number until then was the president and the Secretary of Defense and General Curtis LeMay. Basically, it's like the red phone, right. Inside the. And so when he realized what had happened, they just sort of made a PR thing out of it. And I think starting in 1957, they started doing it on purpose, setting up a phone system and trying to create some goodwill for a lot of the Cold War things that were going on. But I've always loved that story. I thought it's a cute story, and just the juxtaposition of this innocent kid with his Christmas list with, nuclear war is sort of kind of juxtaposed there. I thought, with all the phones screwed up, that would be a good time for the Russians to attack. What would that have been like? And so God Rest You Merry Gentlemen is about that night when the little boy calls in on the phones for the first time, but also there's an unidentified flyer coming in from the North Pole. So I had a lot of fun writing that. Like I said, I'm not a veteran. I'm not a military guy. I had to do a lot of research, and had a kid who was, I guess, 8th or 9th grade, I guess, at the time, but he knew about every single airplane there ever was. He knew all about it, and he knew all this World War II history. And so I went over to his house and told him what my story was about, and we laid out some stuff, and he helped me get started. And then I went to visit the Peterson Air Force Base in Colorado Springs. One of my friends here, her sister had just retired as a brigadier general from the Air Force, and so I got to speak with her and went to the museum. The docent that was working at the museum that day is a guy that had been in the building that I was writing about and knew a lot of the history of that time. I think he was more sort of like early 60s, but he still knew and understood a lot of the early warning systems up in Canada and Alaska and things like that. He actually worked in Alaska on some of the radars and everything up there. And so I had a lot of fun researching it, a lot of fun laying out my maps and my timelines and learning about all these planes and rockets and the early Cold War stuff. And so that novel is out. And once again, I'm like, this all takes place basically in one big room. It's about 20 people. So we'd have to build a set. We're going to pay everybody, of course, this time. But after that, it's not really that hard to make as a film. Everything happens in the room. You're not seeing all the plane dogfights and all that kind of stuff. It's all coming over the radio. And so that's the film that I would like to make next, is God Rest You Merry Gentlemen, with the concept of world peace sort of on the front. The main character is a kid named David, who's, this this little Kentucky kid, from this little Bible thumping town, and he feels very out of place in the military in a lot of ways. And he's a hard worker and he's a smart kid, but he's just got this war going on sort of inside of him of who to be and where to find his value and things like that. So I think it'll be a fun film. I think it'll be an important film, and it'll be a Christmas film because it happens on Christmas Eve.
So not another War Games.
No, not quite. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love War Games. Yeah.
Oh, it's one of my favorite.
Yeah.
You want to play a game? All right. So this is what I've written book, and I've got 3 more coming out. It's not a money maker unless you have a series that gets picked up. What do you do for your day job?
Yeah. So I've done film, video production.
Is that what you do?
That's a lot of nonprofits that need fundraising video. I do some marketing strategy stuff. I'll do like a 2-day thing where I go out and help them lay out sort of the next 6 months to a year, some of their marketing, social media stuff, install stuff. There's a farm here that is sort of converted over into like a convention, event space, weddings and things. And I've put in all their TVs and speakers and stuff. So it's just a little bit of everything. But most of my time lately has been spent on getting this movie done. And so the idea is that when we do God Rest You Merry Gentlemen, that'll be all I'm working on. That'll be the budget for that. We'll cover everything. So
okay, I'm just curious. What's your background? Because we all have our background and then what we love to do sometimes.
Sure. I mean, even with the fundraising videos, people come to me, particularly the nonprofits, because nonprofits are hard because they don't have a widget, that you can show and say, here's what you're giving money for. And also they're going to take your money and they're going to give the product to somebody else, so it makes it twice as hard because you have to sell this intangible product to someone who's not going to receive it, and I'm just in my storytelling, in my filmmaking, in my books, very just tuned into sort of the psychology and the emotion more than anything else, which is what you have to use to be able to do, a fundraising video like that. So I don't do, pie charts and maps and that kind of stuff for my fundraising films. It's all, this is who we are, this is what we're doing, and this is why it's making the world a better place. And here's how you're going to join in and be part of that and what you're going to get out of it.
You're a true storyteller.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Even there, I'm still using my cinematic storytelling for sure.
That's important to tell the story so people understand what you're doing.
Yeah.
Paul, thank you so much for coming on the show today and talking about your book and the movie. And what's really important is the suicide prevention. And please go check out his 5 Coffees and a Book and sign up. And that way you can know when the movie's coming out. If there's anything I can help you with, let me know, Paul.
I sure appreciate that. And thanks for having me today.
No problem. Anything else you want to say before we go?
Godspeed and keep moving.
All right, there you go. Thank you so much.